Hey grillers, Brad here from BB Grill Shack. Today, I'm going to be trying to tenderize some more steaks, but this week, we're using dairy products to tenderize. Let's get started. So you guys know I've been doing a whole bunch of steak showdown videos. I've been trying to find a great flavor and a great tenderizer for steak. Today is another one of those videos. We're going to be looking at dairy as a tenderizer. I got this idea from livestrong.com. I was searching around the internet looking for tenderizer ideas, and they said on one of their articles that dairy should work as a steak tenderizer because the calcium breaks down the enzymes in the beef, and the lactic acid actually breaks down the collagen. Today we're going to be testing out whether or not dairy does work as a tenderizer by using 3 different dairy products to tenderize. I'm going to start with the control, which is going to be treated the same as the other steaks, but won't have any tenderizer. Then we're going to tenderize with 2% milk, Greek yogurt, and sour cream. I've seen good results with sour cream over on Google Foods channel, so I'm optimistic for that one. And I'm really excited to see how the other 2 turn out. Let's go ahead and get started by marinating all of our steaks. Now that our steak's been marinating for 4 hours, I'm going to take them all out of the fridge. I'm going to rinse them, pat them dry, shake them with Holy Voodoo from Meat Church, which is a really good rub. I highly recommend it. And then I'm going to let them sit for another 15 or 20 minutes while I heat up the smoker and let the seasoning soak in a little bit. Now that I've rinsed each steak, let's go ahead and take a look at them and see if we can see any difference. Starting over here, you can see the control. Looks a lot like what it did when it went into the bag, just a little drier because I patted it dry. The 2% milk does look like the grains are a little bit looser, and the color isn't much different than the control, which is good. The Greek yogurt looks pretty soft also. It's a little bit washed out. That might have to do with, it took quite a bit of water to rinse the yogurt off. The yogurt was pretty stuck on there, but I think it's washed out from the yogurt itself. The sour cream is the same. It looks pretty tender, and it's a little bit washed out, maybe not quite as washed out as the Greek yogurt. The sour cream was also really hard to rinse off. Then we're going to smoke them up, which is the next step. So get ready for that. I'm just going to send you guys some B-rolls, and we aren't going to talk too much about grilling. But I'm going to take them to about 135 internal temp to try to reach a nice medium, and then we're going to test them right after that. As far as tenderness testing goes, I'm going to do the same test that I did last time, which is the first test is to poke each steak with a skewer. You can get a little bit of a probe feel for how tender the steak is just by skewering it. So that's where I'm going to start. Next, I'm going to go to the butter knife cutting phase. I'm going to cut a couple slices of each using this butter knife and give it a rating 1 to 10 with the butter knife cut. The third and final test is the taste test. So I'll give a little bit of feedback on the taste, but really it's all about tenderness. Let's go ahead and get started with the testing. The first test is the skewer test. The control feels pretty reasonably tender. Moving on to the milk. The milk feels about the same, maybe slightly more tender. Greek yogurt feels pretty tender. And the sour cream steak feels the least tender so far. So I'd give them a rating of maybe 7, 7, 6 to 7, and maybe a 5. Let's go ahead and move on to the butter knife cutting test. So I'm going to cut 2 slices out of each of these with the butter knife. The control, I would say, is pretty tender. It's somewhere around medium rare, but it's very tender. The 2% milk looks to be about medium to medium rare as well. It was a little bit more difficult to cut with the knife, so I'd rate the control maybe a 7, the 2% milk maybe a 6 so far. The Greek yogurt steak was about the same as a control, so I'll give it a 7. It looks like it's a little bit more on the medium rare side than the medium side. The sour cream steak is a little bit more on the medium to medium rare side, and it was also a little bit more difficult to cut. I'd give it a 6 as well. All right guys, time for the third and final test, the taste test. So I'm going to start over here with the control, go 2% milk, Greek yogurt, and then sour cream. Tastes like a normal steak. Wow. So the milk steak doesn't have any different flavor. It tastes exactly like the control steak, but it is noticeably tender. It's probably, you know, say the control is a 5 on this test. I'm gonna give this one like an 8. It's actually very tender. Moving on to the Greek yogurt. Wouldn't recommend. The tenderness is about the same as the control, if maybe not a little bit less tender based on like the cook and the cut, but I don't think it added any tenderness, and honestly it tastes like yogurt more than it tastes like steak. And personally, if I'm eating a steak, I want that steak flavor. So I would pass on that one. Lastly, the sour cream. Whoa. It's really good too. It's about the same tenderness as the milk, if not a little bit more tender. I'd give it like an 8 to an 8.5 for the sour cream. It does have a little bit sour cream flavor, but you can barely notice because the sour cream flavor already goes really well with the steak and with the seasoning I'm using. So if I had to choose one of these that I might try again in the future, it's gonna be either the sour cream or the 2% milk. All right guys, that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching this video. I appreciate you guys hanging out and checking this out with me. If you like these steak videos, go ahead and check out my future videos. Leave a comment below if you haven't already with what you want to see so I can try it out. The grill I used in this was my A-Smoke. I'll leave a link to my A-Smoke videos, and I also use my grill grate on this, so I'll leave you guys a link to my grill grate versus lodge griddle video. Have a good weekend. I'll catch you next week.